Shalom Israel. I'm yudahyah. All praises to the Almighty Creator alone. I just did a video not too long ago titled, No Man Can Save Us. The Old Testament is the only book of Israel. And there was a child mentioned that the Christian used to justify JC. This is part 2 of that lesson, which this was originally intended to be included. So, with no more to say at this point, let's get started. Unto us a child was born. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 5 through 6. Who is the child? Who is this child? Isaiah presents many of his messages through the use of prophetic names. Isaiah chapter 7, verse 3. 14, chapter 8, verse 3. I want y'all to go to these scriptures and look them up. In one such passage, he declares, For a child has been born to us, a son has been given to us, and the government is upon his shoulder, and his name is called a Wonderful Counselor, and the Mighty God, an Everlasting Father, the ruler of peace, that the government may be increased, and of peace there be no end, upon the throne of David, and upon his kingdom, to establish it, and to uphold it through justice and through righteousness, from henceforth even forever. Now the zeal of the Most High of hosts does perform this. Isaiah chapter 9, verses 5 and 6. In this passage, the prophet presents his message by devising a prophetic name for Hezekiah. Let us keep this in mind. In this passage, the prophet presents his message by devising a prophetic name for Hezekiah. The name is in the form of a sentence, which, although given to Hezekiah, declares the power and benevolence of the Most High. Christians allege that this passage predicts the birth of J-Man. And that the name lists his attributes. A per usual of Isaiah's prophecy shows it to be a carefully crafted testimony to the Most High's great love for his people. Now I want to highlight that. A per usual of Isaiah's prophecy shows it to be a carefully crafted testimony to the Most High's great love for his people. Hezekiah is called a Wonderful Counselor because this portion of the name is predictive of what the Most High will do for the king and the people of the kingdom of Judah. The Most High of hosts has sworn, saying, As I have thought, so shall it be, and as I have proposed, so shall it stand, that I will break Assyria in my land, and upon my mountains trample him under foot. Then shall his yoke depart from off them, and his burden depart from off their shoulder. Are y'all getting this? This is the purpose that is proposed upon the whole earth, And this is the hand that is stretched out upon all the nations. For the Most High of hosts hath purposed it, and who will annul it? And his hand is stretched out, and who shall turn it back? Isaiah chapter 14, verses 24 to 27. Be not afraid of the words that you have heard, with which the servants of the king of Assur have blasphemed me. Behold, I will put a spirit in him, and he shall hear a rumor, and shall return to his own land. And I will cause him to fall by the sword of his own land. Isaiah chapter 37, verses 6 through 7. Mighty God. Hezekiah is called the mighty God because this portion of the name is predictive of the Most High's protecting of Jerusalem through the wondrous elimination of the threat posed by the Sennacherib's army. Therefore, thus says the Most High concerning the king of Assyria, he shall not come to this city, nor shoot an arrow there, neither shall he come before it with shield, nor cast a mound against it. By the way that he came, by the same shall he return. And he shall not come to this city, says the Most High, for I will defend this city to save it for my own sake, and for my servant David's sake. Isaiah chapter 37, verse 33 and 35. Hezekiah is called the everlasting Father because this name is predictive of the Most High's adding years to his life. Go and say to Hezekiah, thus says the Most High of David, your father, I have heard your prayer. I have seen your tears. Behold, I will add to your days 15 years. Isaiah 38 and 5. Ruler of peace. Hezekiah is called ruler of peace because this name is predictive of the Most High's fatherly kindness toward him. Punishment for lack of faith in the Almighty will be postponed, and peace will prevail during the last years of his rule. Then said Hezekiah to Isaiah, good is the word of the Most High which you have spoken. He said, moreover, if but there shall be peace and security in my days. Isaiah 39 and 8. Fulfillment is found in Isaiah 9 and 6. Do you see where this came from and who it was about? When the following of Assyrian defeat, Hezekiah's prominence increased and peace reigned for the rest of his life. 2 Chronicles 32 and 23. Archaeological evidence shows that there was a sudden population increase in Judah following the fall of the northern kingdom. Apparently, many refugees fled south, thus bringing to full fulfillment the statement that the government may be increased. This is followed by, and of peace, there be no end. Now that's pronounced this way, Ein Katz. I can't pronounce it that good, so I'm going to skip it. A hyperbolic description of indefinite amount concerning the rest of Hezekiah's reign. Isaiah chapter 2, verse 7. Ecclesiastes 4, 8 and 16, 12, and 12. Olam, rendered as forever, can have the meaning of an indefinite length of time, may refer to the long-term effects of Hezekiah's reforms. In this passage, it may also refer to the reaffirmation of the Most High's promises to David. On account of Hezekiah's zeal in eradicating idolatry from the temple, the house of David was once more confirmed as the house of David was once more confirmed as the only legitimate dynastic line that the Most High would accept over his people, from henceforth and forever. The notability of Hezekiah lies in the buttressing Israel's spiritual future. He re-sanctified religious worships and re-established the pure monotheistic faith of Israel, worshiping of one Most High. He eliminated idolatrous practices through the cleansing of the palace and the temple of images and pagan altars, all centralized the worship of the Most High in Jerusalem. Despite the apostasy that occurred during the reign of Hezekiah's son Manasseh, his accomplishments would outlive him, leaving an everlasting, indelible impact on the history of his people. Thus, the Most High, through Isaiah, bestows upon Hezekiah this name which honors the king by enunciating the wondrous acts that the Most High will do for him and through him for the people of Israel. Christians allege that the name, a wonderful counselor, is the mighty God, the everlasting Father, the ruler of peace, refers to an incarnate divine J-Man. They contend that such a name, they contend that such a name can only be applied to the Most High himself to make their claim about J-Man more plausible. To the reader of this verse, Christian Bibles generally translate the verbs in verse 5 in the future tense instead of the past, as in the Hebrew text. This gives the deceptive reading, for a child will be born to us, a son will be given to us, and the government will rest on his shoulders. I want to highlight this so you can keep up. This is the trick of the Christians. For a child, now I'm going to read this again. This gives the deceptive reading. For a child will be born to us, a son will be given to us, and the government will rest on his shoulders, and his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Eternal Father, Prince of Peace. Thus, rather than the prophecy referring to someone already born, at the time the prophecy is enunciated, it is made to refer to someone yet to be born. Some Christians will admit that Wonderful Counselor and Ruler of Peace can be applied to a man, but allege that the phrases Mighty God and Everlasting Father cannot constitute part of a man's name. Assuming this passage is messianic, they also maintain this prophetic name illustrates that the Messiah has to be both God and man. Their reasoning is warped. I'm going to highlight that. Who says the passage is messianic? And what names such as Elihu, my God is he, which refer to an ordinary human being? Job chapter 32 verse 1, 1 Samuel chapter 1 verse 1, First Chronicles chapter 12, verse 21 and 26, verse 7 and 27, verse 18. Look them all up. They make the same error regarding the name Emmanuel. God is with us. They are many biblical examples of humans being given names that have the purpose of declaring or reflecting a particular attribute of God. For example, Eliab, Eliadah, Elizaphan, Eliakim, Elisha, Eliezer, Tavel, and Gedaliah. Despite all claims to the contrary made by Christians, J-Man did not in any way fulfill the prophecy of Isaiah chapter 9, verses 5 through 6. And I'll repeat that. J-Man did not in any way fulfill the prophecy of Isaiah chapter 9, verses 5 through 6. A wonderful counselor does not instruct his followers that if they have faith and believe that they can be agents of destruction. Reference that to Matthew 21 and 19 and 21, Mark 11 and 14 and 20 and 23. I'm not teaching New Testament, but if you go to these books, you can see the deception. A mighty God is not subservient to anyone. Luke 2 and 51, Hebrews 5 and 8. Again, I'm not teaching New Testament, but if you compare this lesson with these scriptures I'm highlighting, you can see the deception. For no one is greater than he. That's in Matthew chapter 12, 31 and 32, John 5, 30, 14, 28. Go look at it. Don't study for it, but just see how they manipulated and lied throughout this whole book. Moreover, he does not ask or need to be saved by anyone. Matthew, Luke. For he cannot die by any means. Matthew and Mark and Luke and John. He who is called the Son of God, the Father. John 1 and 18, John 3 and 16. Cannot himself be called everlasting Father. One cannot be simultaneously the Son and the Father. It is an obvious self-contradiction. He who advocates family strife, Matthew 10 and 34, 35, Luke 12, 49 and 53, go look it up, 19 and 27, cannot be called a ruler of peace. There is nothing in this passage that can be associated with the life of J-Man. J-Man is simply not the child born unto us. Shalom.